Okay, I'm finally starting the thing. First, I want to address this because I know if anyone actually watches this, they're gonna be like, "Why the fuck is his headphones all fucked up?" It's because this snapped. Fuck, I can hear myself. That's so weird. So, what I was saying, sorry, is that this broke, and so I taped it. So like it's still like on it, but like it's super broken. So don't judge me too harshly, please, and thank you. So this is gonna be me going through this entire book and summarizing things in the way that I can understand. And if anyone actually, if that helps someone, that's great. I'm also going to be opening Geocron, which is what you can see here. So as I go through it, I'll be like, you know, looking, changing the years and that, so we can actually see how the borders change and stuff, which is sometimes helpful. Sometimes it doesn't matter at all. So, all right. So in the beginning, all right, which is actually a little bit before what I'm showing right here. Okay. Oh, shit. Hold on. Here we go. A little bit before that. So Roman Empire has like all of Europe, which is I know that the course book starts later, but it's still kind of relevant because of how Christianity works and all that stuff like that. So the Roman Empire is all this. It has the foundations. It is mostly centered around Italy and Byzantium, which is where Constantine, who adopts Christianity, so it's the main religion. And that's they have a big pope in Rome and stuff like that. He moves the capital to the eastern side, right? Because just like 100 years later, barbarians just destroy everything, all right? And it's basically back to everywhere in Europe being just garbage and not having anything interesting at all. But the Eastern Roman Empire stays with Byzantium, and it stays there for a long time. And so nothing really happens for a good long while. Um, Stuff happens at the other side of the world after the Western Roman Empire collapses. For example, starting 600 ish, Islam starts, right? And it starts in this section and expands all the way out. And that's why the Umayyads right here, these are the followers of Islam, and they start that way. And they're going to conquer all the way into Spain, right? Which is how it's relevant. Here we go. Emirates C. So, and then during that time, this is finally, this is when the book starts. I shouldn't say finally, because this is in like the first 2 minutes, alright? So, this is medieval times, alright? After Roman Empire and on until like around 1400, it's like the Dark Ages, and like basically no one here is important. There's tons of little tiny kings, but like no one recognizes them. Until Charlemagne, well, not Charlemagne, but until the Franks, as you can see here, which start quite a bit earlier, they get the idea to start conquering everything. Which, complete aside, but so you know the history of Japan video, the guy who did that just did a history of the entire world. So it's more like a world history thing with some actually like physics stuff in there too. But it's really good, and you should watch that. It's funny. It's better than me, obviously, but it's only 20 minutes, and it's the whole world, not just Europe. Anyway, so the Franks, they conquer all of what is now modern day France and also Germany and stuff like that. And they get. This is Clovis who does this. This is actually 481 till 1511. Um, so they're clearly the most powerful kingdom in Western Europe, and he converts to Christianity. And following this is when we get the idea of the Holy Roman Empire when it collapses right here. And every time that there's a new emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope, who is now basically in charge of all of these kings and stuff, he crowns them himself, implying that he's the one in charge. So that's what's important to note is that the Pope is above the nation at this point, and it's going to be like that for quite a while. Let me just close my face a little bit. I'm a bit too big, covering up Britain. I can change the camera here. Okay. And let's see. So for a while now, like all of the important, right now, there's basically no intellectual and smart people doing stuff for a good long while. All the smart people are in the Middle East, right? and that's where all the Greek stuff and all the Roman writings and all that, they're basically being copied into Arabic over here, and a bunch of science and stuff like that happens over here. It's pretty interesting, but it's not European, so it's whatever. So, still, as we continue on, basically everyone's poor, everyone sucks. Oh yeah. So, at this point, there's soon after here. Let's see. Wait for this thing. So the Seljuks, all right. These are the Turks, all right. The Seljuk Turks, all right. So most of this is sucks. Italy's starting to become a little bit richer, but it's not like Renaissance level yet. But it's starting to. All right. Most of the kingdoms, they're large, but as you can see, these borders are like really lame. That's because they're not defined. They're like, we own this area ish. Over here with France and the Holy Roman Empire and England, these are more defined because these are like higher built kingdoms. Okay. The Holy Roman Empire, it looks like it's one huge bit, but this is actually tons of tiny little kingdoms. I don't really know how many there were, but actually, you should just look it up. How many kingdoms were in the HRE at its peak? Let's see. I don't really want to see a whole list of states, but this is not giving me anything. I heard somewhere that was over 300-ish, but I'm not sure if that's right. Sorry. Please hold. My God. You'd think a simple question like that would have a quick answer, but okay, never mind. All right, but yeah, okay. It seems like right here it says so 1450, which is later on. The empire contained 7 electoral principalities. Those are the bigger ones that we know later on. You know, like uh, what are some bigger ones? Like Bohemia, Austria, Saxony, Brandenburg. The bigger ones. All right, those are the electoral principalities. I'm pretty sure. You know what? Fucking never mind. I don't fucking know which is which. But it says 25 major secular principalities, 90 archbishops, bishoprics, 100 independent counties of very unequal importance, and 70 free imperial cities. So at its peak, it had around 300 little kingdoms, or other ones that were ruled by a bishop. The point is, it's a bunch of divided states that are only kind of related, alright? And that's what the HRE is. Anyway, at this point in time, so the Seljuk Turks are attacking Byzantium, right? So Byzantium talks to the Pope, right? Who's is very important, right? Because these are all Catholic, and this section over here is Eastern Orthodox, which is what Byzantium is. And they ask for help, right? Because they're both Christians, so they're in the fight against Islam. So Pope calls a bunch of crusades. The crusades suck, you know that, but they try to retake the Holy Land, and that's the reason they call the First Crusade, which is around this time. I think the year is actually 1095. They use the excuse to take back Jerusalem, but the real reason is to help Byzantium and bolster against Islam. But they kind of fail. So they do take Jerusalem at first, but all the Crusades afterwards, all of them fail. The only one is the first one is the only success, and at the same time, a bunch of stuff happens with that. Is that people came back and brought Islamic ideas. You know, all the information and all the discoveries that they were doing here are now being brought back into Europe. And since they're being back into Europe, the Renaissance begins to start. Okay, I don't know what this line is. I think it's supposed to be like a trade route or something. I don't know what that is. That's fine. Okay. But actually, let me just keep on going. So in Byzantium, also important to note that they came up with Cyrillic. The Cyrillic writing system. It's the way to write their languages over there. And all of the stuff right now is being written in Latin, basically all throughout Europe, except for Byzantium, which is using Cyrillic. So completely different. At the same time, Russia is not a thing at all. They've got their asses kicked by the Golden Horde, which are just the Mongols. Actually, that's what's going on right now. These are all Mongols. Keeps highlighting stuff. Shit. Fuck. Okay. Which is why it says Ilkhan and stuff like that. Byzantium is slowly shrinking over time, and it's gonna get its ass kicked soon enough. Right. Let me just get 214. So as time goes on, they more define. They get these more defined borders. Still kind of shaky over here, like not very defined. But over here, you can see they're getting very specific as where the line is, and that's because they're increasing in complexity. So during this, see Venice and other little states of Italy are getting very powerful because they're very rich now, right? And part of this is because of the Crusades, especially the last one. Last one is basically just a joke that Venice basically just convinced a bunch of people to to attack Byzantium, which is kind of the total opposite of what the original one was. They were trying to help Byzantium, and this basically makes Venice the number one trading power for a while. And all this blue here is all the Ottomans. Only Byzantium's left for a little bit, but it's gonna fall very, very soon. Um, and so because they're so rich, they can start, the Renaissance, and because they can afford all of the important things that they want to do. They want to build churches, um, and write stuff and paint stuff and blah 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 blah. So there's a bunch of little tidbits of information in here, like that are bolded. So I'm gonna go through them. So apparently, the first reference to this movement of the Renaissance was the Italian word "rinascita," used by Italian paper and architect Giorgio Vasari in his "Lives of the Most Excellent Italian Architects, Painters, and Sculptors." This is in 1550. So, like I said, well, not like I said, like we've talked about that. They didn't really know that there was Renaissance going on, right, until kind of when they got deep into it. So the Renaissance is they look at all this information that's brought back from the Crusades and stuff like that, and all of the important people regain an interest in the classics, right? And then when they do, they shit. Rachel, did you say you sent a bunch of messages, but now they're all retracted. You're funny. I don't know who the two people watching are, but I appreciate that you're watching. That's kind of you. Sorry. It looks like I'm just like looking at a blank screen, but I actually changed the tab. It doesn't matter, okay? So, Renaissance, they start writing stuff, they can afford to write stuff. Apparently they called the urban nobility, which composed of wealthy merchants and manufacturers, were called the popolo grasso, or fat people. And then there's other ones like the mediocri, which are smaller merchants, and popolo minuto, or little people. This is not going to matter, but maybe you can put it on a say if you remember. I'm not going to remember, so it's fine. They kept getting more powerful. They were patriarchies, like all of Europe until like now, but it's still basically a patriarchy. So like, just patriarchy. You can always use that, by the way. The women's rights were terrible for like ever. I can't even think of an example of even one European country that had a good standing for its women. So whatever. So most of the Italian states were republics, or maybe not most of them, but a really good number of them, where they technically voted, but it was only rich people, obviously. And it's said associations of free men who sought complete political and economic independence from local nobles. So this is where like the merchants were in charge, not necessarily the nobles. Nobles also had power, but they had separate power, right? And the person in charge was more or less elected. So this is one of the examples of democracy in Europe. These are all city-states, so they're very small. So there's not a single state that's super large that they have a democracy. There's also principalities, which is also basically all of the Holy Roman Empire. Principalities are hereditary despots, so basically like kings and stuff, but they're very, very small and low key, right? The most powerful republics were Venice and Florence, and the strongest principalities were Milan and Naples. See, so you can actually see these on the map. So Florence very small, Venice very small, but you can see Milan and Naples were bigger, and this is because they had kings, because they had the centralized power and a lot more stability with stuff like that. At least that's what I think. So even though, um, oh, it says here none of the city-states were democratic, and even though Venice and Florence called themselves republics, they generally were oligarchies, which is yeah. So they were republics, but like no one could really vote, so it's not really a republic. It's only the people who were the very richest that ever got into power. So it's an oligarchy. So they had aristocrats from prominent families. This is where you get the Medici's and all that. Um, the leader of Venice was called the Doge, which is funny, like as in the meme, you know. Um, I'm just reading your messages now, Rach. Yes, yes, you're right, absolutely about the women. That hell a long time ago there was good rights for women, and there was also democracies, but that's like Greek times, which is like before year zero, before the Roman Empire. But I mean, I think for the most part, I'm right that everything sucked for like ever. Okay. So many messages retracted. Sorry for the pause. Let me go back. So, Florence was apparently always in turmoil and instability with the families and social classes and political factions. They were all fighting each other. Here it says, for example, in 1378, a revolt known as the Ciampi, or the Wooden Shoes, broke out because many laborers could only afford wooden shoes. So, wooden shoes suck. So the cloth workers joined with members of the lower guilds to start a bloody insurrection that left the fat people in fear of further violence. Okay, so right around this time, in 1434, the Medici family seized control of Florentine political life and built their power on wealth from banking and textiles. First one, Cosimo de' Medici, the head of the family, supported by a couple other patrician families, helped him banish the rival clans. And for most of the century, they controlled the office of the government, um, with the other nobles accepting him because the Medicis, because they brought the necessary stability to make them even more powerful, make Florence even more powerful. His Cosimo's grandson Lorenzo made his family even more powerful, and showed it off with extravagant patronage of the arts. Um, so eventually, Florence began kind of sucky again. The Medici, they lost power for a bit, returned to power in 1512, but were driven out again in 1527, and returned finally to return in 1530 to declare Florence a duchy and named themselves the dukes. So, not that really any of this matters at all, actually. Yes, you're always in turmoil and instability, love. Okay, so we can just. There's other stuff going on. Milan is another kingdom. It really doesn't matter. Papal states is kind of important. So, just like any other rulers, the papal states here are a country, except they're ruled by the Pope and the cardinals and stuff like that. It's directly. This is just straight up a theocracy. Um, and they went on for a while. But it says so. In 1378 to 1417, this is when the Great Schism happened. You may sort of remember this, but this is when there were like three popes, right? So France is getting in power, and they wanted to power with the Pope, and so they. Well, let's actually see. Yeah. So the church's loyalties were split between two popes, one in Rome and one at Avignon, which is somewhere over here. And this is because of the one in France being supported by France, like monetarily and stuff like that. So for a while, until 1417, there were two popes, and Christianity was like dividing along political lines on who they supported. Here, for example, Pope uh, Julius II came to be known as the Warrior Pope, Battle Pope, because he brought the Renaissance papacy to its peak of military and political strength, and he joined in the alliance in the Venetians. Um, they joined the alliance to drive out the Venetians out of papal territory, and was instrumental in driving invaders out of Italy, French invaders. So they made themselves more powerful by enlarging their papal army and navy, and making more countries pay them respect, I guess. Last one, Naples, the one at the bottom, is the Kingdom of Naples, which was kind of important for a bit, but eventually it became under a personal union with Aragon. So the ruler of Aragon also ruled over Naples after a while. That's why they have Sicily here. If I Okay, that's too far. See, Jesus, there's so much shit going on in this fucking time period. Like I was going by hundreds, but now it's like if I go by hundreds, I'll just miss an entire fucking country. Whatever. So they were again Naples, patron of the arts, whatever. Um, they were attacked a bunch of times. Blah blah blah. It's not really important. It's just fucking. It's Italy. It's Italy. You know the Renaissance. It's not that fucking important. Also during this time period, Gutenberg, somewhere up here, all right, does his printing press, and it slowly starts to gain in importance. Um, I think it's like I don't know what fucking year it is. 13 something, 13. What year was Gutenberg press? 1440. Shit, I was wrong. So this year. So also you can see here, right? That during this whole time period is 100 Years' War, right? Which takes for fucking ever, and that's why you see these bits of England inside France. Um, is because England was fighting them and winning for a hella long time until finally the French kicked them out way later, with the help of whatever her fucking name is, the crazy lady, whatever. Um, that's a really bad way of putting it, but So during this Renaissance, there is humanism, which is the interest in the capabilities and accomplishments of individuals, which is from Greek culture. Again, Renaissance, rebirth. They're looking at Greek culture, looking at what they did, and just agreeing and expanding upon that. So you have writers such as Petrarch and Boccaccio, whatever, which is weird Italian names. But Petrarch is the father of humanism, is what they're called. He's like, they call him the patriarch of humanism, which is easier to remember because Petrarch. So a lot of these new works were written in Italian, in the vernacular, right? Vernacular is like you speak in a language, and if you write that straight down, that's the vernacular. It's like the more barbaric because it wasn't in Latin, but it's like, fuck you, no one even knows how to speak Latin, so whatever. Um, that made it a lot easier to get into because you didn't have to know a whole different other language to read. And this made it says religion declined as a central focus of interest in almost all areas of life. So instead of being so hugely important religion, it's only mostly important. Um, so there's others. Leonardo Bruni. Leonardo Bruni is the first one to give the name the humanities to the learning of grammar, rhetoric, poetry, history, politics, and moral philosophy, which is based on the Greek and Latin classics. So humanities is finally a thing. Okay. Um, so the early humanists, the early Renaissance was completely focused on Christianity with medieval scholasticism, which is basically using logical and philosophical arguments to support Christianity and to define stuff. It's all in the context of Christianity. But later on, they divided from that, and it became less about Christianity. Of course, still tons of stuff like that. And this is when you get stuff like the Oration of the Dignity of Man by Piccolo di Mirandola, and a bunch of other stuff like that. There's a ton of other stuff about humanism. So all these writings start to become more widespread throughout Europe, not just in Italy, because of Johann Gutenberg in 1450, because he invented that, and it started spreading, and a bunch of people made a ton of knockoffs. But it was first created with a focus on Christianity, obviously, um, to print a Bible. And so that's the first thing. The Gutenberg Bible was first printed in 1454, and its craftsmanship and the fact that so many rich people could get it made it very popular widely. It spread printing press very, very fast. So printing press was invented earlier, but like, who cares? Europeans, it's their invention now. Whatever. Um, and it says at least by 1500, at least 10 million printed of copies of books were circulated around Europe, greatly increasing the number of people that had access not only to Bibles but also to Renaissance ideas. So now it spreads everywhere. Now everyone can have a little bit of Renaissance if they want. Um, so it impacted education, obviously, and so colleges started to pop up, universities based on scholasticism for the most part, train ministers, and also, but also just lords and stuff like that. And this is when the nobles start to get the idea of like you have to become very cultured and knowledgeable to be a good noble, to be a good king. So it starts off with Baldassar, whatever, fuck, Castiglione, Baldassar Castiglione, just remember that one. He wrote The Courtier, which is the first one that's like the noble should placate the ruler, be really nice to him, and always try their best, basically, to be as fancy as possible, but at the same time let the king do whatever they want, and to always be able to help, but like not get too pushy and stuff like that. It's all about how the noble can be the best noble that they can be. Yeah, Castiglione explained that the educated man, this is 1528, educated man of the upper class should not only have a broad background in many academic subjects, but should also have spiritual and physical training. So this is when noble should be a Renaissance man, right? And this is where they can do a ton of stuff, okay? And then this is when we get the big important one that's actually, it comes back over and over, is The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Remember, Machiavellian is a type of government that is very like authoritative and like crushing, and this comes back when we start talking about absolutism. Okay, so Machiavelli, kind of a lot like Hobbes actually. You can draw tons of parallels. If you ever talk about one, you could definitely synthesize with the other for sure. Absolutism, with The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli is a ton like The Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes, right? And the prince is saying that the leaders, political leaders, or the princes of Italy, because they weren't really kings and principalities, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The people in charge need to not only be just like a good moral leader, be just, stuff like that, but they need to just be as good a ruler as they can, which may include being a shitty ruler at the same time. It may include being an absolute asshole to people, right? You gotta put your foot down, you know? So he's saying that if you gotta execute people, do it, but don't make people upset about it, right? Make people understand that this is for a good reason. So he, as a humanist, he was quite interested in human nature, and his assumption that human beings are selfish and generally evil, like Thomas Hobbes, led him to conclude that the prince must manipulate people in order to reach his goals for the state, right? So the prince is saying that you have to look good and make people think that you're being a good moral ruler, but only because it makes people okay with you being the ruler, right? If you're a complete asshole and everyone thinks you're an asshole, you're not gonna be king for a really long time, right? So you gotta be like crushing your enemies and killing the people who are speaking out about you, but keeping that like low key at the same time. So you have to be a strong ruler, right? And this is a lot like there's another thing that I was thinking of, not absolutism, not Thomas Hobbes, but another guy a second ago. Shit. Fucking. I don't remember. But yeah, strong states is what's important. And he made this for the Medici's because he made them mad. And then they banished him essentially, and he wrote it for them, and they took him back essentially. Again, not really important. He says, Machiavelli's important assumption is that the building of states and political authority are goals in themselves that do not have to be justified by religion, right? You can be a king for a king and not just for a king for God. He exhorted princes to adopt the ways of both the fox and the lion, because the lion cannot defend himself against snares, and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. Therefore, it is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares and a lion to terrify the wolves. As in, you have to be scheming and kill your enemies. That's his whole thing. He's kind of important. The Prince by Machiavelli, and this is 1513, okay? 1500, early 1500. And then during this time, there's a bunch of painters, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, and a bunch of sculptors, Donatello, who sculpts the David statue, I think, right? I think that's what he does. Whatever. So they start focusing on perspective. Anyone in art history, you fucking got this fucking Renaissance, you're fine. There's a lot of symbolism and stuff like that. And they're doing it for one viewpoint, control of space, blah blah blah. It's got hashtag deep meanings, but it's art. You get the idea. It's art. Okay. We read like a fucking packet or whatever. They also do architecture. Filippo Brunelleschi, whatever. That guy, he does the dome thing, which takes fucking forever to build, right? They had built like the whole thing already, and he just built the dome, but whatever. The dome is the Santa Maria del Fiore. It's in Florence, I think, probably. You get it. It's fucking architecture, all right. Other ones, Leon Battista Alberti, is that there's like perfection and squares and circles or like, whatever. Doesn't matter. Leonardo da Vinci, Renaissance man. Not only did he paint, he also invented a bunch of shit and stuff, whatever. Raphael's important for the school of Athens, which is a thing that he painted that had all the philosophers, but also his contemporaries like Leonardo and Michelangelo. It's like a self-insert sort of. Michelangelo, not Donatello. Michelangelo did the David, which is, it's the David statue. I was gonna say something hashtag deep about it, but I couldn't think of one. I don't even know who's watching. That's fine. What else? So the Northern Renaissance finally started. In the 1500s and stuff like that, it started spreading outwards. And during this time, Europe, for the most part, was super shitty. I mean, it's gonna be shitty for another like 300 years, but like it was super shitty now too. There was only like a few really big cities, and everyone else was just poor in rural towns and stuff. It's feudalism still, and now that feudalism basically started during the Dark Ages after the barbarians, but before I don't know, before stuff. And that's the whole system of manorialism, where the peasants tied to land, kind of like serfs. They farm. They give some of their food and stuff to the knights who live in their castle, on their manor, and the knight defends the land. And then there's these knights are even more powerful. These are lords that had a bunch of knights under their control that all gave some of their peasants food to him, and the lord paid fealty to the kings, etc. You know how it is, and the king was like sort of in charge, but like the nobles could do shit, and then the pope was like sort of more in charge, but also not really, because whatever. So it's shitty, right? There's not really any other big city-states like Italy. And the leftovers of the Romans are like, there's nowhere. The barbarians just wrecked everything. You might find some ruins, but like Italy, you can actually find buildings that were built in Roman times, and like the popes there and stuff. So it's like extra good. So there's Northern humanism. Some of these had even more religious focus. They had more focus on Christianity than the writings of Roman and Greek antiquity. So they studied Latin and Greek, but they applied their knowledge to editing the Bible and reading the writings of the church fathers, right? So all of Northern, they didn't have the Greek and Roman stuff. They didn't have that around, right? Petrarch, he used to go and literally find the Greek and Roman writings, While the people in the north, they don't have any of that shit. All they have was fucking Vikings or something, which is like it's nothing. The Vikings can't write worth shit at all. They suck. They suck at writing. So they just focus on Christianity because they had the Bible. Uh, so the best known northern humanists were Dutch scholar Desiderius Erasmus and Englishman Thomas More. So Dutch scholar, that's Dutch over here. Erasmus, Desiderius Erasmus, and in English Thomas More. Erasmus wrote some stuff. They got no bold stuff. Doesn't matter. There's other important people, painters like Jan van Eyck or whatever, Albrecht Dürer. Yeah. So, what's the next important thing? We're gonna go to 1450. Okay. So, due to the Renaissance, all right, England, the rulers of England, France, and then Spain, which happens a little bit later. Skip to Spain. Okay, here. So, the rulers of these three countries. These are the three main countries until Germany really starts being a thing, all right? And you could actually see Austria is sort of a thing. Why is it highlighting everything? Jesus. Stop fucking highlighting everything. There we go. So these are more powerful, and that is because they are now what they call the new monarchs, which is they centralize power using, the prince and stuff like that, and they become a lot more powerful in charge of their own country, okay? And, wow, fuck, this fucking book sucks. I'm gonna grab the other book because this doesn't have, like, any fucking specific thing at all. Literally, it skips from Renaissance to Louis the 14th. So, like, just fucking skipping all the shit. Yeah, this is not useful at all. Sorry, fucking Ethelwood, but you've shamed yourself. I'll be right back. When I say it didn't have anything specific, I mean it had tons of specific stuff for the Renaissance, but like, there's not even a mention of the 100 Years' War. So, let's see. This might be faster too. 1350 sounds about right. Yeah, Renaissance. They didn't have slavery much at the time. They did, but it wasn't like a black thing. Actually, it's not really a black thing in Europe until colonialism. Started talking about women, but they mostly just critiqued women and were fucking misogynist as fuck. Right. Also, in what fucking year is this? Hold on. In the 1300s, anyway, the Black Death comes in and fucking kills everyone. Everyone's fucking dead, just like half the fucking place, right? And so then they have 100 Years' War. England and France. You can see there's still like little bits there. See, I don't know if you can see them. Hold on. No, I went too far back. Hold on. You can see these little see the lines here, stuff like that. This is like conflicting stuff. Burgundy, for example, was technically under France, but they were technically their own thing, stuff like that. And it wasn't really united. And part of that was because they got English support. You see this little fight. This is a battle, and there's a battle over here. There's a bunch of wars and stuff because England and France are just fighting each other. This is when Joan of Arc. The stuff. Charles the Seventh is, remember, Charles the Seventh, alright, is French, okay, and he's the one that he revived the monarchy in France, okay. He was a shitty dude overall, but like mostly almost in spite of himself, he united France, and he's the one that makes it be like this. He's the one ruler at this time, okay. All the other French kings don't matter. There's just like three that matter. Charlemagne, that's the one that did the Holy Roman Empire hell a long time ago. Okay, Charles VII, kicks England out of France for the most part, except for this bit. And then Louis the 14th, obviously, we know that one. There's some other ones, or maybe not. So also, big one, it's 14. Let's see what year it is. 1476, 7, 8, 9. What? 1480. That doesn't sound right. But what happens is the hold on. I think it's the Queen of Spain, Isabella the First, and the King of Aragon. This one who now owns Naples. They're now one country. All right, because of marriages and stuff like that. What happened is Naples didn't have a king, and it's probably something like this happened. Naples didn't have anyone to rule it, and the closest one that like he was in charge because of marriage. He was in the Naples family. Okay, so Naples royal family rules Naples. All right, Aragon family rules Aragon. All right, they get married. All right, and so Aragon now has ties with Naples. All right, Naples, they all die. All right, so who's left to rule Naples? Aragon. Aragon does. All right. Now, what also happens is that Aragon, all right, King Ferdinand of Aragon, all right, marries Queen Isabella of Castile, all right, or Castile, whatever it is. They get married and form Spain. Spain, as you can see, now gets all of the shit. They get Aragon and Castile and Naples, and also Sicily and Sardinia and a couple other places, because of all these marriages. All right. During this time, the same. What's also happening is England is getting more powerful, but also fighting themselves or something. During this time, in the 1400s, the War of the Roses happens, which is a big civil war, which ends with other people in charge. The Tudors are in charge, I think. I don't know. They just went through a civil war and it kind of sucked, and that was the end of the Hundred Years' War, something like that. I don't know. I don't really get this bit. So Spain is now a thing. Also, everyone hates Jews all the time because we're assholes. I mean, Christians are assholes. I'm not a Christian, so like, well, whatever. It's not my fault. Oh, hey Matthew. Yeah, tons of stuff. Iberian Wedding. Yes, York and Lancaster. I don't know how important York and Lancaster are though. So also there is a delay when I do stuff. What the heck? What? 3 people watching? Awesome. Whatever. Sorry. Alright, at the end of this is when the Reformation starts happening, alright? Reformation, you remember, Martin Luther, okay? So I'm trying to see what the fuck is going on here. I don't really know why this is all... Flanders apparently super important. Wow, nothing happens with borders for like 100 fucking years. Thanks, fucking asshole. Your shit, fuck. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going back. So, Martin Luther. Actually, you know what? Let's see what happens if I can... Okay, I'm gonna open Europa Universalis 4. Alright? I'm gonna do it. And... It's a game that simulates European history. So I'm gonna open it up to see if we can just look at, because it has a bunch of different maps. It has like religious maps too. So potentially I can open it and we can look at the religion, what's going on there, and potentially some other stuff. Throughout these years. It starts in 1444, which is why I didn't start with it, but like now it just makes sense. So while it's loading, so during this time, right before the Reformation starts, bishops and clergy in general, everyone's starting to kind of dislike them because they're really rich, because because it's been a long time since anyone's kicked their asses. So anti-clericalism starts, and they start having songs making fun of them, and a bunch of other shit like that. And let me mute this. Turn off all the mods. Let's hope there's not any DLC I'm missing. Oh, I'm missing tons of DLC. Hold up. Please hold while I fix something. Well, not fix, but... Just loading. So, what happens is, Martin Luther is also being pretty mad about all this, and during this time, and before, Catholics are selling indulgences. You know, of all the fucking things about indulgences. So he writes a 95 Theses, protesting it in 95 ways. He says it's a shitty way to grant access to the. Wow, you're calling me out, Matthew? Hey, fuck you. There you go. I'm using it. I'm not gonna like play it. All right. I'm just saying that it's useful. Like I'm just gonna click the years, you know, and we're just gonna look at the map, and it has religion and stuff like that. So and they do the research, so it's not bad. And it's probably better than Geochron, which just shows borders. It's a little bit more specific, but like it's annoying. So he writes that, and Catholics are like, "What the fuck? You can't fucking do that." They where is it? I'm trying to get to a section. So his ideas start to spread around. Some people are like, "Yeah, indulgences are fucking stupid," and others are not. And they, especially in the HRE, it's a whole mess. They have the diet of worms, where the guy in charge, which is starting to get very important. His name is was it Charles V, I think. I think it's Charles V at this time. I can't find anything. Please hold. Charles V of von Habsburg. Okay, well here let's just take an interlude, right? The Habsburg dynasty. I explained at the beginning of my video, Bethany, that my headphones are all fucked up because so this broke. It snapped when I was trying to put it on one time, and I don't want to buy a new one, so I just taped it there, and so it's fucked up. It's totally fucked up. But this one is fine, so it's fine. And stop making fun of me. All right, how about that? And you didn't see my face at all, I don't think, did you? It's motioning. No, you didn't. That's fine. So it's like this because it's broken and it's taped, and this is duct tape, and I can't just hold it like this all the time because that would be stupid. So we're just gonna not, and the game's not fucking working. So the Habsburgs started becoming important. He's the Holy Roman Empire, Frederick III. The von Habsburgs are Austrian, okay? So rulers of Austria, for the most of Austria anyway, and they kept marrying over and over again tons of important people, starting with shit. Sorry, my game just came on super loud. Fucking hell. Hold on. It's not loaded enough to get me to actually be able to go to settings and turn the fucking thing off. So Frederick III first starts a marriage with Portugal, and then another one in his family marries marries a princess of Burgundy, who inherits the Netherlands, Luxembourg, as well as the County of Burgundy, which is eastern France. Finally, I could turn off fucking sound. Okay, let us show you the thing. Okay, So this is 1444. Put it on religion map. I know it's horrible. Can't. Sorry, I'm looking at the text thing, and it's yeah, I see it with the delay. So anytime I respond to you guys, unless if it's actually on the app, it sounds like there's a delay. Yeah, so you're a little bit behind. It's fine, Bethany. I'll just. Two. Oh, I'm gonna have to take actually a brief interlude because my mom just got home and there's food. But okay, I'll just do a quick thing. So we're gonna. All right, here we go. Going by. Oh shit, this is gonna be so fucking slow. Holy shit. This is gonna take a million years. I usually use my other computer, which is why this is so incredibly slow. Okay. Let's go a bit farther back. Yeah, this is gonna work. Never mind. I take it. This was a waste of time. This is my old laptop, which is why it's shitty. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Let's switch to the 2. Okay. Well, there was an attempt, which is fine. I think, right? That's fine. Okay, so religion, Protestantism is a whole mess in the Holy Roman Empire with some like Protestantism and some like Catholicism, and they're always fighting. And this is when it happens the 30 Years' War, um, and that's finally solved by a couple of treaties. And I'll be back to talk about those in a minute. I gotta say hi, everyone. I'm sorry. Be right back. I'm back. Hold on. Uh, I'm also probably gonna do this tomorrow, at least earlier in the day, because there's no way I'm gonna get through all of history. I'm just realizing how fucking dense this whole history thing is. It's fucking bullshit, by the way. Like, I go through, and it's like Renaissance, Renaissance, Renaissance. Oh yeah, and all the rest of the fucking history, real quick. There's just tons of shit. Um, like, just tons. All right, I'm sure you guys are aware, but like, I'm just re-realizing it. Um, I don't know why you said Battle of Vienna on the thing. Holy shit! The delay is pretty. Hold on, pretty bad. It says there's my stream thing. It says there's that there's a bunch of issues apparently. I don't know if you guys are getting issues. If you are, just text me and then I'll try to fix it. Although I'm not really sure how. I could just like refresh. Might be it. But there's a pretty significant delay, like 30 seconds or so, something like that. So what do you mean by Battle of Vienna? What are you trying to ask? Like, do you want me to look up Battle of Vienna? Do you want me to talk about it? Uh, no, I'm so confused. That's fine. It's fine. I'm just getting your text now. So Habsburg's in charge of everything. Let's see. Yeah, so Spain gets in charge of everything, but eventually, actually, I'm just trying to figure this stuff out. This is actually. What about 1529? Sorry, I'm just confused as to what you're asking. But that's fine. Okay, okay, I'm gonna go through each page, I'm gonna skim it, and then we'll see, alright? So, Martin Luther is about, sola fide, solo grace, solo scripture, so whatever, it's in Latin, but he says faith alone, grace alone, scripture alone. So this is the whole thing that we gotta return to our roots, forget all this Catholic things with all the pretty churches and stuff. It's all bullshit, alright? We gotta go back to like plain churches with like nothing in them because we're all poor now and all we have is God and stuff like that. And faith is the only way to get into heaven. Good works is bullshit because if you're rich, you can do a lot more good works. Like that's just not fair. Stuff like that, which kind of makes sense. And Catholicism first reacts against him, which is kind of a bad idea because it's like you guys are wrong. Eventually they go back, but we're not to that yet. What else? So he posts those theses on the door. Here it is. So Charles V, who is the main Holy Roman Empire. This is like the last chance for the Holy Roman Empire to actually matter, alright? Because after this, the other big states are going to get way too powerful, right? So Charles V marries with Spain, and he marries with... he's in charge of the Netherlands and Spain and Naples, as well as Austria, as well as being the Holy Roman Emperor, and a bunch of other stuff. So he wants to become even more powerful. He wants to become world famous, alright? So he calls the Diet of Worms to publicly attack Martin Luther and become a protector of the faith, right? So everyone can know him and being like, holy shit, that's the guy that's in charge of the fucking religion. He's the dude. He should be in charge of everything, stuff like that, right? Anyway, so in what year is it? I'm trying to find it. It was right here a second ago. Please hold to the next page. Fuck. Shit, fuck. I literally just fucking read the thing. This is... I'm upset. Oh my god. There it is. Okay. This is... So he calls the Diet of Worms when he's actually very young. He's only 21 years old. And he calls his first diet the Assembly of the Nobility, Clergy, and Cities of the Holy Roman Empire. So this is the first time for a long time that all the Holy Roman Empire is gathered in one place, and this is because he wants to become super powerful, right? He wants to organize it, but it's not going to work at all. So he calls the Diet of Worms, and Luther just fucking... this is 1521, finally found it, and Luther does not... they don't come to any agreement. They just kind of yell at each other for a while. And finally, so because of this, because of actually the exposure, right, a lot of these Holy Roman Empire little city-states, they start to agree with what he was saying, right? They start paying attention. And it grants them some more freedoms, right? Because if they don't have to pay a lot of fealty to the Pope, if they don't have to give a bunch of money to the bishops and stuff like that, they can be more wealthy. And this is actually basically what happens in England later on, that they seize a bunch of stuff of the church. But this doesn't happen for a little bit. So there's other important reformers, like Ulrich Zwingli, which is a guy in the East, I'm pretty sure, right? So there's a bunch of other reformers that start popping up, which forms Protestantism, right? So that they protested the decisions of the Catholic majority in... the word Protestant started up in the Holy Roman Empire, where some of the German princes at a different diet, the Diet of Speyer, doesn't matter, they protested the decisions of the Catholic majority. The word gradually became a general term applied to all non-Catholic Western Europeans, or European Christians. So they disagreed. Protestants disagreed with Catholics on how is a person to be saved, right? That it's by faith and not by good works, or something like that. A bunch of conflicts on the sacraments. What are they actually eating the blood of Jesus and his body and stuff like that? The Protestants, for the most part, say no, and they say you can only justify it if it's actually in the Bible. All right, that's the only word of God. And the Catholics are like, well, we came up with a bunch of other shit too, and it was alright before, so like, why don't we just keep that, stuff like that? And Luther's like, no, let's make Christianity great again. And that's what they try to do. And the Catholics don't want that. So they didn't agree with everything, obviously. There's a bunch of disagreement on different sacraments. Some of them they both agree aren't real. Some of them they disagree what's real, what's not, stuff like that. Which it basically means that Protestantism, it splits into a bunch of other bits. All right, and eventually you actually get other stuff like Calvinism, stuff like that. But I don't even know where that is. So during this, at the same time, because of all these. Actually, hold on. I don't want to say the wrong thing too many times. Anabaptists become a thing, which they don't believe in babies being baptized. They say that you got to do it when you're older. Hold on. I'm trying to find... So this is the German Peasants' War that I'm reading about. Okay, here it is. Crop failures in 1523 and 1524 aggravated an explosive situation where in the early 16th century the economic condition of the peasants varied from place to place, but was generally worse than it had been in the 15th century and was deteriorating. It was kind of good before, and that's because of the Black Death as well as all the other stuff going on, because there were less people, so there were more jobs and stuff like that. But now that the population started catching up, things are shitty again, right? And then they have all this stupid stuff going on with religion, and now everyone's mad about that. And so everyone's just super pissed off. And finally, when crop failures in 1523 and 1524, and no one has any food, they're like, shit, we gotta do something about this now, right? So nobles made this even worse by seizing village common lands, imposing new rents, and requiring additional services. and by taking the peasants' best horses and cows whenever a head of household died, right? So like whenever someone died, they would take your shit too. So like everything sucks, right? So they finally revolt because um, they cited the Protestants conforming to the scriptures and stuff like that. The church, the Catholic Church, was like, no, you can't do that, right? And then the peasants were like, yeah, but where is it in the Bible? It says here in the Bible that I can get my shit. It didn't really say that, but like they interpreted it that way. So at first, Luther was like, "Oh, cool, people agree with my ideas," and then they started fucking killing everyone because he got so pissed off and out of control. It was like, "Well, fuck this, you guys are shitty, whatever," and he didn't support the rebellion anymore. So initially, he sided with the peasants, blasting the lords. I love this as blasting, like fucking calling them out, right? It's like on Twitter for robbing their subjects. But when rebellion broke out, peasants who expected Luther's support were soon disillusioned. Freedom for Luther meant independence from the authority of the church. It didn't mean opposition to legally established secular power. So he's like, yeah, the Catholic Church sucks, but like kings are all right. Like, I mean, one yelled at me, but like, I mean, another one kept me in his tower and like he was chill and stuff. Like, they're in charge. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, you're a peasant. Like, go home. Um, and so it's generally shitty. And so he thought that the rebellion would hasten the end of civilized society. He thought it was going to be like the apocalypse. He wrote the tract Against the Murderous, Thieving Hordes of the Peasants. He basically called them out and insulted all of them. And then the nobles crushed the revolt and killed 75,000 peasants in 1525. So, yeah, a ton of people died because they didn't want things to be shitty anymore. So that was the German Peasants' War of 1525, and because of that, all the authority of all the rulers that helped in that was strengthened because they were like, hey, we kicked the ass of rebellion. No one else is going to rebel now, and so no one rebelled for a bit. Of course, but there were some improvements because so many people died, jobs and stuff like that. But also, a lot of enclosed fields and stuff like that were returned to the peasants, and the nobles actually gave it back because the nobles weren't that in charge. The rulers were very much in charge, but the nobles were able to give some stuff back. Women's rights kind of improves because they can marry pastors instead of just being, they can't marry priests and stuff like that. It's not just nuns. They can actually kind of be important and not be quite so shitty. Sorry, I keep checking the chat every now and then, even though I don't think it's important. Okay, what else? Oh, Charles V is... Wait, actually, hold on, let me read this again. Third... Again, von Habsburgs are in charge of Austria. They have a ton of really good marriages, stuff like that. Oh, at this point, by the way, they've already done the colonies and stuff. Like, this is actually from a while ago. Let me zoom out. I wasn't paying attention, I guess. But that's kind of the whole thing with the Habsburgs, right? Because not only did Charles V, not only was he in charge of Spain and Naples and Austria and a bunch of smaller German places and stuff like that, he also had a bunch of influence in the New World, right? The grandson, Charles V, the grandson of Maximilian, which is the one who started all this web of marriages, he died in 1558. So let's see what happens at this peak. At its peak of the empire, he has Spain and Naples, these bits of the Netherlands, Austria, and all of the western coast of Western America. Hold on, I'm getting another person. Sorry, I was letting another person know about this. She's probably actually going to see me talking about it because of the delay. Yeah, so the Charles V of Austria owns Portugal, Spain later on, Burgundy, Netherlands, Luxembourg, um, what else? Austria, obviously. Um, yeah, the Habsburgs ended up fighting France a ton because mostly because of the conflict between over Burgundy, because it's considered a part of France, but then it was technically under the control of the Habsburgs. So the French were kind of pissed off about that. Um, Also, Charles also had bits of Italy as well, including Naples, but also other bits as well. I'm not really sure which ones though. But he was basically like the perfect like marriage thing. Like he was perfectly in charge of everything. Like it was pretty incredible of how it happened. Of course, that led to a bunch of inbreeding, which wasn't so bad in Charles himself, but like slightly later on, especially with the rulers of Spain, as we'll find out, they oh boy, they're super inbred. Like oh my god, they're like they're retarded. Like Jesus. Um. So Charles V was defending of Catholicism mostly because it's a unifying force, right? It's another big institution that he can rely on, sort of like another absolutism thing. Because during this, actually, Louis is in charge. Louis is in charge, I think, 1400s, right? 16. I don't remember. I think so. But these are like when people get really important. If we're still talking about the Reformation, this is when I think it's what is it, Henry VII, I think, or Henry V. Let me look. Yeah, Henry the Eighth might be. It was completely wrong. Henry the Eighth is the one who breaks with Catholicism. He was originally way for it, and he wrote a defense of it. He wrote a defense of the Seven Sacraments, and he was saying that Luther is a fucking idiot and he should go and kill himself and stuff like that. Obviously not like that, but you know. But eventually he wanted a divorce. He married Catherine of Aragon down there, who was the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella. So Catherine of Aragon is basically the one in charge of Spain, right? Married her, he she didn't produce any sons. She only produced a single daughter, Mary, and so he decided that God was didn't like the marriage, and that's why he didn't send any sons and had all their only got her pregnant once. So he decided to have a divorce, right? But Catholicism doesn't allow divorces unless if it's like a really like it's very exclusive the definitions. I forget which ones. So he was like, fine, fuck it. If I can't have a divorce in Catholicism, I'll just make my own fucking religion. And so he did. And it's basically just Catholicism, but you can also divorce. And a couple other things where the king is more in charge than before. So my mouse just stopped working. I mean, I'm just trying to fix it, but it's like, it makes it harder to click. So, that's another, Charles the Eighth. That's the one, doing that shit. He divorces a couple other more times, which is funny. He's the one with the small dick. You know the one. You've probably seen pictures. I can't fucking use my mouse. This is so disappointing. See, the problem with this bit of history is that like everything's happening at the same time. Because at the same time you got colonialism, all right? You have the Reformation going on. You have the Habsburgs doing their thing. You have England doing their thing, right? They ended up and the Enlightenment's about to happen, all right? France is doing absolutism with Louis, okay? It's just so dense. At the very least, Spain, for the most part, is only doing stuff in colonialism. So you can mostly ignore Spain and Portugal, all right? More or less. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at Matthew's text. And yeah, it's just tons of shit. Let's just take a little brief interlude. In the meantime, the Ottomans are super fucking powerful. Like look at this shit. Look, they control like all the south, all of the. I mean, they kicked the Byzantium's ass like a hell a long time ago. There's no states over here. There's no Slavs. It's all Ottomans, right? The north, Poland, Lithuania is now like one country. Poland, Lithuania, like united. I don't know what the hell the Teutonic Knights are, but they're not important. I'm sure Matthew knows plenty about it. Don't ask. And then in the east, you finally get Russia. Russia's finally a thing. But I don't think they're trying to modernize just yet. They're pretty backward. They're Eastern Orthodox. Um, pretty. I mean, not much is happening over there. Other stuff of the world, who cares? Like, I'm not even gonna zoom out because mouse isn't working. Um, what else? Scandinavia, not important at all. Denmark and Norway united, but like, well, Kingdom of Denmark, Norway under King Christian III. Like his name was Christian during a time in the Reformation. That is funny. I really hope he broke with the Catholic Church. Now that's funny. That King Christian III became Protestant. I don't know. I find that amusing. Sweden, not important at all, but they became Protestant. So Scandinavia is Protestant. The northern bits of Germany, the Holy Roman Empire, are more or less Protestant. But most of the big states, like France and Spain and Portugal, they stay Catholic. England is now their own version of Protestantism, which isn't like a free one. Don't. Oh, never mind. I was gonna yell at Matthew, but like, this is gonna be another minute or so. And my mouth is broken, by the way. Mouse, not mouth. So looking for. So the 30 Years' War happens in the Holy Roman Empire because of all these fighting with Protestantism and Catholics, right? So eventually, so this is 30 years of war. This is following those peasant revolutions, following the Black Death and other stuff like that. It's just, it devastates everything. Everything's just super shitty in the Holy Roman Empire now. And this was exacerbated by France and Sweden and a bunch of other places. There's good videos that you should watch on those if you want to know about the 30 Years' War, like really good ones. If anyone actually asks for it, I can get a link. They're much better than anything I could go over. And it's like the whole three phases thing. But basically, France is Catholic, but they were sort of supporting Protestants because they wanted to weaken the authority of the Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V. So it's this whole mess of web of alliances. But it ends, first of all, with the Peace of Augsburg, which brings peace to the Holy Roman Empire, which recognizes Lutheranism, the Protestant Lutheranism, just that one. What the hell's the other one? There's the Peace of Augsburg and the Peace of Westphalia. I'm trying to figure out which one is which. Shit, I don't fucking remember. So most of northern and central Germany became Lutheran, while the south remained Roman Catholic. And so the Peace of Augsburg is the one where it's the political authority in each territory can decide which religion to choose, right? And of course, the people living there can't choose. It's not entirely good, but it's mostly good. All right, if he's asking for the link, let me find it to YouTube. 30 Years War. Oh, what's the guy's name? Shit. Oh, okay, I found it. It's Future History. That's the guy. Future History is pretty good, but they only do very specific stuff. So let me put that in the chat thing. Because if you're on my stream, you can do the chat thing. There you go. That's a pretty good video. I watched it before we did the test, and it helped me a lot. Yeah, it goes over. It's only 10 minutes long. I thought it was longer. I guess because 30 made me think 30 minutes, but it's not 30 minutes. So if you want to know about that, just look at that one. I'm gonna go on because I've stayed way too long on this without actually learning anything new. So England is like a mess with the religion. Like they keep going. Like I know Holy Empire is a complete mess too because they had a fucking 30 Years War over it. But England is a mess because they keep going back and forth depending on who's in charge. Okay, and honestly, I don't know if it's worth it to look through the whole thing. But yeah, I should probably actually go to eat soon. So let's just get to hold on. I'm gonna finish this chapter, and then I'm gonna take the break to eat. I don't know if you guys want to continue or not. I don't know if you guys are gonna stay up, but like I don't have anything to do tomorrow, so I think I might do some more after. But I'll do some tomorrow too. Obviously, we're not gonna get through the entire fucking history book. There's too much shit. But I think it gets more specific as time goes on, and I can go over some of this more specific stuff. So it's not as bad as it looks. It's pretty bad. So in England, Henry finally has a son after he divorced. So it's technically his religion, right? Protestantism. Protestantism takes really good hold. Okay. Scotland still Catholic. Okay. Important to remember that. Ireland still Catholic. The Archbishop Thomas Cranmer simplified the liturgy, invited Protestant theologians to England, and prepared the first Book of Common Prayer. So that's Thomas Cranmer, okay? Which is basically a way for Protestants to do stuff, to pray, and it's like his own interpretation on stuff. Um, so then Mary Tudor is shortly in charge for only a little bit, and she's Catholic. So then she she makes the country Catholic again, and there's a bunch of stuff with that, and undoes the Reformation basically there. Um, then she marries her cousin Philip II of Spain, son of Charles V, which was a really bad idea because no one liked Philip II. He also was like super inbred, and so she executed several hundred Protestants. So everyone like was like, "What the fuck are we doing with this queen?" So um, she died, and her half sister Elizabeth, Henry's daughter, with one of his wives, was raised Protestant. So she was Protestant, and she inaugurated the beginnings of religious stability. And so she was like trying to make things okay with both sides. Wanted she got a middle course between Catholic and Puritan extremes. Um, so she was good for a while. Philip II of Spain, which again no one liked, and he wanted to unite England with Catholic Europe, but when Mary died earlier, another Mary, Queen of Scots, right? She was the Queen of Scots, and they wanted to unite Scotland and England, um, and she was Catholic, right? So she was next in line to the English throne, but Elizabeth didn't want her to be in charge because she was going to ruin all of the middle course stuff that she had done, all the balance that she had worked towards, and so she made it so Mary was found out that Mary wanted to kill Elizabeth, obviously, because she wanted to be in charge, right? So pretty clear reasoning. So she basically finds that out, executes Mary, right? And it was true. She was actually trying to kill Elizabeth. 1587, she became implicated in that, was executed, and it was Philip II of Spain that was supporting that. So Philip sent the Spanish Armada when his Mary, died, the one that was executed. And that was the English Channel, but they got fucking wrecked. Even though the Spanish Armada was like super awesome and like just great, but the English won basically because they were faster and smaller, more maneuverable, and they had better technology, basically. Finally, in the same thing, we're finally getting to this part. I didn't talk about it before, but it happened before 1509. Spanish Armada is like 1588. Okay, so completely different. We're going way back. 1509, Luther was preparing for his doctorate. John Calvin is born, right? And John Calvin, eventually in 1540s and stuff like that, 1533, he with Protestantism happening, he decides to agree with that, and he started doing his own thing. So Calvinism is all about predestination, and you're either going to go to heaven because God wants you to go to heaven, or you're just not. And stuff like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys know about Calvinism and how it was like really rude and stuff like that. So he goes to Genoa. Genoa's right over here, and he starts to make like the ideal Christian society. And earlier stuff like Thomas More, he wrote, or maybe some other guy, they wrote Utopia and stuff like that. So it was with those writings and stuff like that. So Calvin wrote the institutions of the Christian religion, and basically trying to organize society in a Christian way, which is what he's thought the best. It was basically like, you can't have fun. That was the whole rule with it. Um, and yeah, there's no songs and dances. No one can play any games. No one can get drunk. You can't blaspheme. So kind of like a shitty place, but I mean it was like governed well, I guess. So there's also Reformation in Eastern Europe, but like it doesn't matter at all. So we're just gonna skip that. Because it's Eastern Europe, no one gives a fuck. Uh, Finally, because of all this Protestant stuff, the Catholics were like, shit, maybe we should actually do something about these things. Because, like, this is kind of sucking a lot. Ooh, this is a good map. So, on page 415 of the thing, it has a map of the religions in 1555 and a bunch of little event places. So it's pretty good if you look at that one. I'm actually going to put, like, a bookmark or something. Fold a page. I don't know. Yeah, I'll fold a page. So I can look at it later because this is actually very relevant. So eventually they have the Council of Trent, and they reform the church. They're like, fine, we won't do indulgences. It's not. They still work. They still work, but we're not going to do them anymore because poor people can't afford them. And they do a bunch of other stuff. They started doing missionaries, which was what's it called? There's an official name for those. Hold on. Almost have it. Jesuits. That's what it's called. They formed the Jesuit colleges to start spreading it and fighting back essentially against Protestantism, but not like physically by spreading it by just spreading it. I said just spreading it by just spreading it. I'm stupid. And they basically got all themselves to agree because like basically what was happening is that all these Protestant leaders were making arguments against the Catholic Church, and the only one that could actually fight back basically was the Pope. And everyone else had like stupid arguments that they were all contradictory. So they basically got together and agreed on what they were going to say when they got argued against. It was just funny. Other stuff. I'm gonna finish very soon. We're just gonna go over. So in France, their religious stuff that was going on was with the Huguenots, which are Calvinists, and they originally there was some violence between them. Between Protestants and Catholics in France, with Protestants destroying Catholic churches and stuff like that, and Catholics killing Protestants in turn. They both viewed each other as agents of Satan, because that's the thing you do when you're Christian. There was a civil war as well, with the French nobles adopting Protestantism as a religious cloak for independence, is what it says here. So Catholic royalist lords and Calvinist anti-monarchical lords occurred. They fought a lot. It wasn't like full-on, we're taking over the country civil war. It was like more of a protest kind of thing. It was for smaller events. It wasn't like a full-blown, the entire country is in war. It's like this section's in war and this section, oh, this section's done, but this section started, stuff like that. So finally, realpolitik started. A Calvinist ruler, Henry IV, I think. Henry IV, who... Sure, I don't fucking know. But he did the Edict of Nantes. He changed to Catholicism while he was still a Christian. I would update the map, Matthew, but like it's... I'm going back and forth, so like this not much is gonna change. You could just go here, 1600, I guess. So the Netherlands. This is good timing. All right. So Charles V owned Spain and all the places, right? He owns all of them, right? Including the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is actually under Spain, which is under him. Okay. So the Netherlands starts into they do their independence movement. In the 1560s, Protestants, so they're all Protestant in this area, okay? And they're Catholic around, right? So they want to be separate from that area. They want us to be separate from the Holy Roman Empire, which is technically Catholic, right? And they're under Spain, which is very Catholic, okay? So they want to separate. It starts as a religious thing, but it then starts to be political, and it's supported by England because because France is supporting it too, because they're Catholic. Most of the people in the Netherlands were Calvinist, more or less, and Spanish authorities attempted to suppress Calvinism, and so rioting ensued, and they spread outwards, and they basically just had a civil war. So the seven northern provinces, led by the country of Holland, which is right here where Amsterdam is. Oh, are you seeing 2 pages? Oh, on the book. Sorry, um, I'm at 420 now. This is funny. I'll just text it. You're gonna hear it in a second. So Holland, and Belgium and all that, they united between 1468 and 14 between 1568 and 1578. There was a civil war in the Netherlands between Catholics and Protestants in. So now I'll update the map. So as you can see, 1580, you can see that these bits are now uniting. Okay. So there's the Spanish Habsburg forces against the Dutch. Okay. Finally, they formed the Netherlands with the Union of Utrecht. And Utrecht is this little bit right here. I don't know if I can zoom in. This is Utrecht. Okay. And so they have the treaty here. This is Holland. So the north is going to be Protestant. The south is going to remain Catholic. England eventually drew into the conflict and supplied money and troops to the northern United Provinces. These ones, the orange ones. And they spread outwards. And finally, in 1609, there was no more wars, and they recognized that the Netherlands is the Netherlands and that they're independent from Spain. Which book I was using? This one, History of Western Society, because the other one is like specific and not specific at the same time. It's kind of shitty. Like it goes over very specific things sometimes, but like it doesn't go back. So if it concentrates on like the Renaissance, for example, it completely ignores whatever else is going on. The 100 Years' War, for example. So that's why I didn't look at Ethelwood. I did originally at the beginning, and if you go back, you'll see me doing it. But it's just not that good. It's good for colonialism, and I probably should actually go back and look at it for that. But yeah. I'm gonna end this on the note because I need to eat, and I'm also gonna call Rach because I want to call Rach. Sorry for being cute, whatever. And I might get on if you guys are still wanting to study, but like if you're not, that's totally fine. I can just continue tomorrow. So the last thing that's happening in this chapter anyway of religious violence, there's a bunch of witch hunts during starting in the 1480s before the Reformation, but becoming especially common until about becoming especially common in about 1560 and until roughly 1660. So this is like 200 years almost. There's tons of witch hunts like going around everywhere. Anytime a woman is being weird to them, they go and just burn her because they're assholes. It says between 100,000 and 200,000 people were officially tried for witchcraft, and between 40,000 and 60,000 were executed. 75% to 85% of those tried and executed were women, and this depended over and where you were. But for the most part, if you were a witch, if you were accused of being a witch, you were a woman, and if you were executed, you were probably a woman. And there's a bunch of curses, stuff like that. Go to hell is a curse now. It wasn't before because they didn't really talk about hell that much. I think Inquisition in Spain happens. Not entirely sure when though. I'm sure Matthew's gonna text that. Yeah, that it ended. That's how this chapter ends. So with that, I'm gonna eat. And so I'm probably gonna be back in like 40 minutes, maybe an hour, more or less. I'll text you guys. Also, I need my throat to rest because I'm talking a lot. But hopefully we can actually start going a little bit faster because like I'm not actually doing that good right now with this. I think I'm not summarizing very well. It's because I keep jumping back and forth and stuff. But with that, yeah, I'll bounce for a little bit, and you guys can have your snack. Or if you have any questions, write them. And I can text them. So yeah. See you guys in a little bit.